What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So those Xbox pre-orders went up 11 a.m. yesterday, and it turned into chaos pretty quickly. A lot of websites wouldn't load, they were crashing, people were confused, it really was just chaos all over the place. We're gonna go over that here today, and yes, it turns out resellers are also going crazy all over eBay right now. Also, the Nintendo Switch Pro, it's something that keeps coming up, right? A Switch revision. Well, now it looks like a fairly large online retailer has actually listed the Switch Pro, and it has a lot of people talking. It was something that was sent to me quite a bit. I'm gonna go over that here with you guys today, and if it really means anything and is pointing towards an announcement soon by Nintendo. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we work towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're gonna start today with a funny side note to the entire Xbox Series X and S pre-order situation, and that has to do with the Xbox One X. Check this tweet out here. This is from Andrew Alert saying, Xbox One X sales rank is up 747% on Amazon. Wonder how many people bought an Xbox One X instead of an Xbox Series X. Well, if you look at Daniel Ahmed, he points out that 747% refers to the sales rank increase, not the increase in actual unit sales. Amazon is weird like that. So what he's saying is it's not necessarily, oh wow, sales jumped 747%. If just a few more Xbox One X systems sold, like maybe there was one like the week prior and then maybe 4 sold this week, maybe 2 people really did accidentally buy it, or what I like to think, maybe a bot accidentally bought them because it was configured incorrectly. That would be good karma, I think, and pretty funny. But this just means that enough sold that the SKU itself, the Xbox One X, moved up to spot 308 on like the hot movers and shakers. So it wasn't even like overall sales or anything like that. It was just enough. So it was probably like 4 or 5 that really sold. It just kind of fell in line with the idea that these names are confusing, and you see all of a sudden the Xbox One X start moving up 747%. Also, we had talked about Assassin's Creed Valhalla being 4K 30 at first. This was talked about by Ubisoft. People were confused because it's like, well, we got these new systems, why aren't you hitting 60 frames per second on them? Then they turned around and said, oh, we will do 4K 60 on the Xbox Series X, and now it looks like they are confirming it will be 4K 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5 as well. It appears that Eurogamer had posted a confirmation from Ubisoft. The thing was, it was in German, so we had to try to translate it and try to figure it out from there, but enough places have gone through it, and it does appear, yes, Ubisoft is saying it will indeed be 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5. Now, I look at this and I say there's probably going to be 2 different modes. There'll be their quality mode that's 4K 30 with all of the cool effects and all the stuff on, right? Maybe even ray tracing, they'll play around with that. Whereas 4K 60 will probably turn quite a few of the effects off, and it'll probably be a dynamic resolution to hit that 60 frames per second cap. But you know what? If it's smooth at 60, I'll just go with the performance, to be honest. I'd rather the fluid movement, and it is good to see an open world style game hit that kind of frame rate, especially with kind of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 being severely limited by their CPUs with those Jaguar cores. It's good to see that Zen 2 is going to pay off going next generation with a significant improvement over those old CPUs, and hopefully that means we'll see more open world games hitting 60 frames per second. Oh, and we did get a video released by Microsoft detailing their share button. Remember, that's one of their big additions to the new Xbox Series X or Series S controller, is that it will have a button that will allow you to post things to social media, screenshots, all of this. Before, we would have to kind of hit the Xbox button and move around and take screenshots that way, or even better, at the beginning of the generation, we would say, Xbox, record that, right? That was what we'd have to do. It was pretty annoying. But now it looks like we have the share button. You can see it here, and you press it once, takes a screenshot, you press and hold it, takes a video clip. Very similar to how the Nintendo Switch Pro controller works, where you have that, right? And sure, I mean, it's a share button. It's pretty simple. They did show off their companion app where you can take the screenshots and video clips and move them around there and then kind of shoot them off to any social media you would like to. And that makes a lot of sense. Social media has quickly become intertwined with gaming, so to be able to share anything you're doing in your games, that's pretty much default at this point for a lot of us. So good to see that the share button isn't something crazy and it opens up a whole other menu and has this big UI thing you have to go through. It seems pretty easy to use. So good news there. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this Switch Pro listing. Now, this is a story that was sent over to me quite a bit online through email and Twitter. A Switch Pro had actually shown up in some capacity on a fairly large retail website. Now, I'm not familiar with this retailer. I had to check around a little bit, and according to Nintendo Life, it does appear to be a fairly well-known and large online retailer in Europe, and we'll take a look at it here. Here's the image that Nintendo Life managed to capture for it, and this is a retailer called MediaMarkt. It's a multinational retailing giant that operates across Europe, and you can see right there, it says Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch Pro consoles. Now, the question, of course, is, would this retailer actually know anything about a Switch Pro? My take on this is no. And the reason for that is after I saw this, I said, well, did I miss something here? Because generally I can check in with wholesalers and say, okay, well, do we have any listings for this? I will tell you, most of the time, they don't tell you about any consoles. They find out about consoles when we find out about consoles. And then, we start to figure out pre-order situation and all of this. Games, however, is a different story. It's common to find out about a game before it is announced, even through wholesalers. When you see retail listings go up for these things, they're not always just made up. Sometimes they legitimately are updated, they put them in their system, and then people find them. But this just more or less, to me, appears to be a category that was updated and accidentally went live, or they didn't really care and it just went live. There's no image of a Switch Pro, quote unquote. There's not even a full product description, nothing like that. It almost appears like they hear about the rumors and now they are just trying to get their website kind of up to date for that actually happening. But I don't think there will be any Switch revision talk during these holidays. I think Nintendo has their holidays set for the most part. You could see some other little announcements or something happening, but I think with a Zelda game, yes, I know it's a different type of Zelda game. It's a Warriors type Zelda game, but they have that there. They just did the Mario 3D All-Stars collection. Pikmin's coming up. I think they're good to go. So the earliest I would expect to hear anything about a Switch revision would probably be in either January or February. Most likely, though, they will announce it 30 days before it actually comes out. They don't want to mess with any of their sales currently. I did also check in myself with some wholesalers, one large one in the US as well, just to double check. Nothing about a Switch Pro, all right? So it does seem that they just updated their website. It went live. They probably didn't really care, and people took it and was like, Switch Pro, is this a thing? And then they sent it to me, and here we are. Also, for the record, I do think there will be a Switch revision next year. I don't know if it's going to be a massive leap in graphical performance or frame rate, anything crazy like that, but based on Nintendo's history with handhelds and their systems, they are kind of due for one, and if they don't do one next year, they might as well just wait until the follow-up to the Switch 2 or something, basically for next generation, because then they're kind of running out of time for this generation to do a full revision. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox pre-order situation that took place yesterday at 11 a.m. Pre-orders opened for some of the retailers, not all of them. If you were physically there in line at GameStop, you got to walk in, pre-order it, and then you got to leave. However, according to Dreamcast guy who did go out, there were 30 or 40 people that showed up, and they had 8 or 9 Xbox systems for pre-orders. So seemed that allotment wasn't very high for physical stores, and we had talked about this before. It was very weird that Microsoft didn't kind of load up GameStop at all with this. It's strange. But as for the online retailers, some went live immediately, others just kind of waited throughout the day. Best Buy, for example, waited an hour or two before they started going live, but Walmart and Target, they just immediately listed them and we were off and running. Amazon waited a little bit as well, but I did manage to get an Xbox Series X from Walmart after fighting with it like crazy, and that was the biggest thing. Once again, retailers were not prepared for the amount of traffic that they were getting, despite everything being planned and scheduled out. There wasn't that much of a difference between the PlayStation 5 pre-order and the Xbox pre-order when it comes to these websites being able to handle things. I mean, you figure Microsoft says, okay, guys, we're going to have pre-orders go live this day, this exact time. Make sure your websites are ready. and they weren't. Pre-order buttons were broken, carts were messed up. At one point, I was trying to add an Xbox Series S to my cart at Target and just said I had too many in there and I didn't have anything in my cart. So that ton of fun with that, right? Well, it turns out resellers had a field day with it, because if you go on eBay, yeah, it's loaded up with them. $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 Xbox systems all over the place there. Great. And Microsoft's own site wasn't able to stand up to the traffic that it was receiving. And we did have Microsoft and Xbox release this on Twitter. We are humbled by the record-breaking demand for Xbox Series X and S. Huge thanks to everyone for the excitement. If you weren't successful today, be sure to sign up with retailers for updates and expect more consoles to be available on November 10th. So I'm gonna tell you this right now, do not buy from resellers or scalpers online. Don't buy from them right now, because I have a strong feeling that we will get more pre-orders leading up to release. And it sounds like Microsoft might have a pretty good initial shipment to stores even after pre-orders. Like, there might be a chance for walk-in from what I'm hearing here. So we'll see. It's going to come down to the manufacturing, of course, how many they can actually get to us and into these stores. I'm hoping for at least a Series S walk-in, although I think that will be the hard one to get because of the amount of value in that box for $300. That's going to be the one that you're going to see a lot of people, especially moms or dads, buying for their kids. They're going to opt for that one over the $500 Xbox Series X that they don't see a reason to buy a kid who might just want to play Madden or maybe want to play Fortnite or FIFA or something. You're probably going to buy them the $300 box. So we'll see how all of that goes. And the biggest thing here is Microsoft should try to provide more of that system over the Series X, because I think demand will just be higher for that S. But we'll see what happens here going into it for the release. Wasn't a great day for pre-orders. This is the third time, by the way, in a couple of weeks now. The RTX 3080 launch was a disaster for pre-orders online, the PS5 launch for pre-orders, and now the Xbox launch for pre-orders. We got to get this figured out, this whole thing. I don't know what we have to do, but something has to change when it comes to these pre-order situations online. I don't think they have to like stagger them out completely over a week where we get tickets and we get in the queue that way so it spreads the traffic. I don't know. And then these bots running rampant all over the place. We got to figure them out too. Next up, let's talk about some potential storage options for your PlayStation 5. Now with the Series X and S, we already know Microsoft and Seagate are partnering up with a little memory card that you get to buy for what appears to be a bit over $200 based on some listings that have been kind of leaked out and starting to go up now. But for the PlayStation 5 with that 825 gigabyte SSD, we're probably looking at that and saying, you know what, I most likely will have to upgrade at some point. What are we doing with that? Well, Sony themselves have said we're going to be looking into PCIe 4.0 NVMe drives, right? And we've been waiting to see some come out. Well, we did see one now from Samsung. You can see an image of it here, and this is the Samsung 980 Pro, and this might end up being the one that Sony tells us is compatible, mostly because it seems to match up to what their requirements are. And I assume what's going to happen is Sony is going to release a list, or you'll be able to test them yourself in your PS5, which is probably not great because you might buy one, it's not compatible, and then like, what do you do with it? I guess you try to return it after opening it, and that's a whole thing on its own. I'd prefer a list, that makes things easier. But just for 1 terabyte for this, it's $230. They have 250 gig for 90, and then 500 gig for 150. But I think most of us would, if we're going to make that kind of a purchase, an upgrade, we just go for the 1 terabyte and try to be done with it there. They're also going to have a 2 terabyte model later this year. I'm sure that will probably cost a ridiculous amount of money. This drive, however, is seriously fast, has read speeds of 7,000 megabytes per second and write speeds of 5,000 megabytes per second. Of course, you can get it for your PC as well, and it will also work in PCIe 3 slots. I just will basically max it out. So there we are. We should see some more of these NVMe PCIe 4 drives come out, and we'll just keep an eye on them to see if hopefully over like the course of 2 or 3 years, the prices really start to come down. Because yeah, $230 for a terabyte, that's kind of tough, right? But as we've seen with things like SD cards that started out expensive on the Switch and then dropped in price pretty quickly, I'm kind of hoping the same thing is true here, but there we are. We at least have an idea as to what we would have to buy to expand the storage on the PS5 and what it'll cost. Now we just have to figure out where we put the NVMe drive in the PS5 and what is actually compatible. We'll have to wait for Sony on that one. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Game Pass and Microsoft and even now Bethesda. Of course, Microsoft bought Bethesda. We heard about that news the other day, kind of broke the internet, but something that was hidden down in the press release talked about Game Pass and the number of subscribers, because naturally, they bought Bethesda so they could help bolster their first-party lineup and continue having game after game after game come out. They need good game output, frequent game output even, for this model to work. And that, of course, left us with, well, how many Game Pass subscribers do you have now? And is that actually growing that fast? Turns out it is. They went from 10 million Game Pass subscribers in April to now 15 million. That means they've gained 5 million in about 5 months. That's pretty good. And while we keep talking about 100 million unit sellers for consoles, Microsoft is kind of looking at this, stepping back and saying, can we do 100 million Game Pass subscribers, right? Can we do 200 million? Can we do 300? That's what they're thinking now, is continue adding to that number. And according to Satya Nadella himself, CEO of Microsoft, they might not be done buying studios. In fact, as Game Pass continues to grow, they'll probably feel the need to continue adding to their first-party lineup, to continue adding to their game output, so they can keep making compelling arguments to you for why you should get Game Pass, why you should put $10 or $15 a month into this, rather than spend $70 a piece now going to next generation on these games. So yes, as long as Game Pass continues to grow, I would expect Microsoft to continue to shop. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Jake Komar saying, if you buy Game Pass, you now pay for Skyrim every single month. Todd did it again. I laughed when I saw this comment, and then I realized something. Skyrim would be added to Game Pass, right? Which means that Skyrim would also be added to xCloud. And then that means that Skyrim would transcend generations of consoles. We always ask, oh, is Skyrim going to be ported to the next generation of systems? They're going to do it, right? They're going to move to all kinds of stuff. It being moved to xCloud means it would already be on your phone. Skyrim's on your phone then. What if they moved it to smart TVs? You wouldn't even need a console then. It would just be on your TV. You just fire it up and start playing. What if they moved to your smart fridge? This acquisition by Microsoft just made Skyrim forever. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys? Hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whether there's that Switch Pro listing, do you think they're onto something? Maybe they heard about the Switch Pro and they're thinking, oh, we'll list this up now to get ready. Or are you thinking like me that Nintendo probably won't even announce the thing like till 30 days before it's coming out, right? Like next February or something. Oh yeah, Switch Pro, it's coming out soon. Next month you'll see it. Also, did you manage to get an Xbox Series S or an Xbox Series X with these pre-orders, or are you kind of left out in the cold right now, waiting, hoping that there is a restock ahead of launch or even at launch? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.